You are being recorded, okay? So these are power interviews of solo agents, and we're going to hold one a week for the next 8 weeks at 1 o'clock on Thursdays. Now, I know that struggles a little bit with some team meetings and other things, but we'll get through it. The first one today is Lexi Gladman. Lexi is a real estate agent with Keller Williams, presently in Mount Pleasant. Lexi's claim to fame is that she is the open house queen. Okay, we're going to give her a quick interview, and then we can open it up for discussion later on. I think the biggest thing that we're going to take away from today is to understand that a purposeful open house will it will generate leads every day. Is that correct, Lexi?
That is correct.
Cool. Well, welcome to the show. If we're going to call it, can we call it a show? Can I call it?
Yes.
Cool. Welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who you are, where you've been, how long you've been doing it.
I am 27 years old. I was born right outside of Atlanta. Went to Georgia Southern University, graduated with public relations with a minor in marketing. And then I moved to Augusta, Georgia, and started my career in new home sales. So I worked on site for a local builder there for a little over a year. I got recruited by Keller Williams' agent while I was there. She was an ALC member, top producer in her market center, to come work for her. So I became her assistant. I am not a good assistant at all. So I only lasted there for about 6 months before I went on to sales. And then, I moved here to Charleston because I got married, and that kind of comes with marriage. You have to move. So he got sent here for his job. So I moved here right before we got married. So I've been here almost 2 years. July will be 2 years. So I had to completely start over my real estate business, which took a big hit on me mentally, because that is not easy to do. Within a 5-year time span, building 2 businesses in 2 different areas is pretty hard.
So let me ask you a question. Did you learn the open houses and the conversations that you had from the builder, or was that afterwards? Tell me about the builder.
Yeah, so I actually didn't realize how much I learned from them until I got here and focused on open houses and really started building that business for myself. Am I frozen? Can you hear me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay. My internet's spotty, so just wave your hands if I'm frozen. So I didn't realize it until I got here and really started focusing on open houses, that the questions I was asking and the passive way that I asked those questions, I really learned a lot of that while I was in new home sales. And essentially, I hosted an open house every day while I worked for them. So, sitting there waiting on people to come in and having to convert those people specifically for your neighborhood is really hard to do. So you have to be knowledgeable about your community, which is huge. You have to be knowledgeable about the builder and the home you're trying to sell. So yes, a lot of what I learned came from the builder.
Was it a class that you took, or was it something you picked up from somebody next to you? How'd that work out?
Yeah, so my boss that hired me, she sold at Blanchard and Calhoun, which is a small local real estate company in Augusta, Georgia, and she was the top realtor for many years there. So she had knowledge of this side of the business, and she basically molded me. So she taught me a lot of what I know about real estate in general, and specifically open houses. So she was definitely my mentor in that position. And I did take a few courses while I was with them. I would say about 3 or 4 over the course of the year and a half I worked there. And they were very salesy courses. So a lot of that also taught me what I didn't want to do at open houses, to be honest, because I'm not a salesperson. So I didn't want to stand in a certain corner every time and say very robot, things to try to get the house sold. So that's not the way I do it.
Okay. So what was the difference between the conversations you were having and you were successful and the salesy course? What was the difference in it for you? Because I think a lot of people are like you, in where until they internalize a conversation, it's very salesy. Right. What made the difference to you?
I I see that the main objective for me in an open house is to make a personal connection with someone. So whoever walks in that door, I'm trying to make a personal connection with them. So if they're wearing a Clemson shirt, like I'm either the biggest Clemson rival or I'm a Clemson fan in that moment. Like you have to make a connection with them right out of the gate, because that's, people want to work with people they trust. Everybody hears that over and over in real estate. So if you form that deeper connection with them immediately, the faster you do that, the faster they're going to trust you, the more they're going to open up to you. So I don't remember too much. I kind of blocked out that section of my life about the courses that they taught us as far as sales goes. But yeah, just standing in particular corners and pointing out, like focusing more on the features of the house. Like I don't necessarily do that as much as I focus on the person that's standing in front of me.
So it was more a feature benefit type, feature benefit. What do you think about that? And would you like to buy the house?
Correct. And
as opposed to what would you say differently to those people? Well, let's go back one. You said to make that initial contact. Somebody walks in the door. I've held open houses. Not my favorite thing to do, simply because I everything has to be in a line for me. If I get two people, I'm like, whoa, wait a second. I got to talk to everybody. Am I going to miss that person? How do I tell me what happens when they walk in the door? Hi there, how you doing? What's the rap?
Yeah, so introduce yourself, shake their hand, or in these days, elbow bump. And I immediately ask them, do you live in the neighborhood or are you out looking for a home today? So that's my first question every time. Do you already live in the neighborhood or are you out looking for a home today?
I'm out looking for a home today.
No, don't script with me, Greg. You make me nervous when you script. I didn't sign up for scripting with Greg. Okay.
And we promised we wouldn't do it.
Okay,
so if whatever the answer is to that question, I think my biggest fears when I was doing open houses was getting too deep too quick with the person, because I can get real salesy. I'm pretty direct, that. I can get real salesy real quick because I really don't want to spend a lot of time with you if you're not motivated to sell or to buy. Is that the same way with you, or do you have a longer patience?
So yes and no. Probably have a longer patience than you, Greg, but not too long. So first question is always that. That tells me if they're a buyer or a seller, right? They already live in the neighborhood, they're a seller. If they're out looking for a home, they're a buyer. My next question of if they're a buyer is how long have you been looking? So to me, that tells me if they've been looking for 6 months, oh, awesome. Have you had someone helping you look? Or have you had someone helping you look with the process? That's telling me if they have an agent or not, right? If they've been looking for a long amount of time, they most likely have an agent. You don't assume, but most likely. So then you're digging questions about agent if they've been looking for a while. If they say, oh, this is the first house I've looked at. Oh, great, you're my client, right? So then my focus shifts to immediately, I want to make that personal connection. So that is with every single client, those are the first questions.
So how do you make, and I get that, that's a great motivation and agency are knocked off, right? Because you're finding out how long have you been looking, you're testing their motivation, right? If they've been looking 6 months, then you're assuming they have an agent. I take it you assume that that's the next question you're going to ask them?
Correct.
Okay, so do you have an agent? Are you working with an agent? Fabulous. And then you said make them feel at home, make them personalize it. How'd you phrase it?
Yeah, so you're trying to make a personal connection after that. So let's say this is the first house they've been in, okay? Then I ask maybe a few other preliminary questions like, are you specifically looking in this neighborhood? Like I may ask a few questions specific to their search, but then I bring them into the house. So that all happens kind of in the foyer or as you're walking in slowly. So you're trying to make them feel comfortable, welcomed into the house. And then I kind of stop them. I give them a few facts about the house that they're in right then, the neighborhood, the house, and then I let them go look. So I'm forming I'm getting a few answers for myself. Then I'm forming an initial connection with them. But, like I said, if they have a Clemson shirt on, I'm like, oh, awesome. You a Clemson fan? Did you go to school there? How long have you lived in Charleston? I don't know. You're just anything you can find to dig up. You're trying to make that personal connection.
Have you asked them for their name or address or telephone number or anything else that's on those sheets? You haven't?
Not yet. I mean, I get their name when they walk in, but they haven't written anything down yet with me at that
They
point.
haven't written anything down. Cool. So you let him go. The next guy comes in. I'm going to compound this. This is where my fears lie. The next guy walks in. You do the same thing. Now you got two sets of people walking around the house.
Mm-hmm.
The third guy walks in. How do you manage all this?
Yeah, it gets very difficult. I mean, really, I manage it by those first few questions. Like, that's why the first few questions are so important, right? Because you're trying to figure out who they are, how long they've been looking, and do they have an agent? That helps me weed out the people that I'm focusing on while I have so many people in there. So my focus immediately goes to the people who this is their first house they've seen, right? Because I want them to be my client. So at the end of the day, that's how I weed them out, and that's how I figure out who I'm going to focus on.
Okay, so, and that's great. So you focus on the person that hasn't been out looking for 6 months. You want the guy this is the first house we stopped at. I'm going to be the person, trust me, like me, confide in me. So you're going to get all that information. So they finished walking through the house. Now tell me what happens when they're coming back out. What's the question you're asking? And I'm going to shorten this up because I want to get to the other part of this, but tell me the questions that you're asking when they're coming out of the house.
Yeah, so once they've looked, I try to bring them back to the center of the house, like where my stuff is, where my sign-in sheets are, which is typically the island of a kitchen or just really the kitchen in general or a kitchen table, depending on the layout of the house. So I bring them back and I always say, tell me what you think. I'd love some honest feedback. And then if they're not really giving me anything, I say, I'm actually not the listing agent of the house, pending it's not my listing, of course. I'm not the listing agent of the house. So feel free to be really honest with me. Like, I'd really love to hear so I know more about your home search. So you're relieving them of the fact that they're going to offend me, right?
Okay.
And then that also helps them trust you more because they know they're not going to offend you now and they know you truly want to hear what they like and didn't like about the house. Cool. So then I'm going down the path of their home search from then on out. It's all about them and their home search. And then you're diving deeper into how long they've been looking, what are they looking for, when are they looking to move? I'm finding their motivation at that point.
Are you, can I drop the acronym LP Mama? I mean, is that pretty much, I know you hate it, but it's an old term, but it's the things you need to do to find out. Do you have, obviously you've done it long enough and you've done it at such a success. Are you following a path of questioning once they say, you know what, we like the house, but the dining room wasn't big enough? Where do you go from there? Are you going into, well, I do have other houses that I can show you with a bigger dining room. And that's when you start to pick them up? Is that what I'm gathering?
Yes. So after I'm asking all the questions and I'm into the stage where I pick them up, I always have 2 to 3 vacant comps with me. And this has sold houses for me. So if you take anything away from today, take this. I always take MLS sheets of 2, minimum of 2, maximum of 3, really, vacant houses. And I highlight the main differences of that house versus the house I'm hosting the open house at. So if the price is a little higher, highlight it, lower, whatever. So really price, bedrooms, neighborhood, things like that would be of utmost importance to them. And I know those comps like the back of my hand so that when they say things like that, Greg, I can refer back to them and say, you know what? Here's a house right here. I already have it set up. I'm happy to meet you there right after I get done here around 5 o'clock. And like I said, the first house I ever sold when I moved to Charleston, that's exactly how I did it. I met her at the house right after the open house, and I had her closed within 45 days. And
Lexi, you hit it right on the nose. It's probably one of the most important things because I've done the same thing. When you're holding an open house, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I think you just said it again, when you're holding an open house, make sure that you have 1 or 2 appointments that you know about. You've researched it. You understand the neighborhood. Hey, this one might not have it, but I think this one does. Even if it doesn't, you want to take them to that next house so that they do trust you when you build a rapport. Is that what I'm getting?
Yes.
Okay, super. When do you bring up agency?
Yeah, I don't. I don't. I'm not your by the book.
Got to put a disclaimer here. And anybody wants to know, go ahead.
Yeah, full disclaimer, don't talk to me about agency. No, so I I bring up agency in my consult, and with someone like this, it doesn't happen right away. It just doesn't. I've qualified that they don't have a realtor, and I qualified that they want to buy a house, right? And I want it to be with me. So I'm taking them to that next house immediately. And when I get there, I will have some sort of buyer consultation with them, whether it's a verbal one, whether I have a consult with me in my car, like I should every time, and just go through that with them, right? And it all depends on if they're a first-time home buyer, if they bought many homes. Like, you do have to adapt. It's not going to be the same for everyone. And that's where it gets a little difficult, is like, you have to learn to adapt to the client. But yes, when I show them that next house, I'm showing them the house, and then I'm either asking like, hey, the next step would be for us to sit down and have a buyer consult, right? Because I want to dive deeper into what you want. This gives me a great idea, but likely, like, let's say that's not the house for them, right? Like, you need to figure out what is, and you need to be, you want to set your expectations moving forward. So that is my next step with them, is to get a buyer consult, but it is after I show them that house, because I want to, continue to form that relationship.
Fabulous. And it's the real world. It's the real world, right? It's the real world. We've all done that. We've all taken somebody out. I think in this situation, well called for it, and that's what you do. So that was a quick scenario of getting a client, how we do it in the open house. Quick 1 or 2 questions before I go back to the original, back to another topic dealing with the open house. Anybody got a question? Fabulous. Nobody wants to know nothing. Okay.
Question.
Greg?
Yes, Betsy.
I have a question. Hi, Lexi. Nice to see you.
Hi, Betsy.
Lexi, circle back to what Greg said. You've got 2, 3, 4 couples in the open house, and that's wonderful. You already know 1 or 2 of them have agents, but there's 2 other ones that don't. How do you juggle them? Do you ever just talk to them as a group, or do you try to keep them separate? Or, I mean, it's kind of like at an open house, I think, when you have multiple people, it's like a non-cocktail cocktail party. Right. And people want your advice, and they want to know what you're thinking of. And you don't want to seem like you're on automatic pilot. How do you deal with that, Lexi?
Thanks, Betsy. Great question.
It is a great question. Thank you, Betsy. So I don't know that I'm a master at this. I get just as shuffled when I have a ton of people in a house. So, but I do the best I can. So A is weeding them down to who's important. And B is I don't ever really talk to them in a group setting unless they're already talking to each other. And then they, it just kind of happens naturally. I don't force that group effort. I try to meet them in separate parts of the house and have different conversations with them, because their searches are going to be different. Their wants and needs are going to be different. So I try to keep those conversations different. So let's say, 4 groups come in kind of all at one time, right? And I've had initial conversations with them. And like you said, 2 of those groups are different. Immediately when people stop coming in, I'm going to find the first of those 2 groups that came in that doesn't have an agent. Okay. So I'm going to go immediately find them. I'm going to act like I'm, just moseying around, but I'm going to find them, and I'm going to ask them preliminary questions and make it very clear that I'd love to help them with their search. Okay. And then I'm going to try to do that with the next group, all while still trying to meet them in the kitchen at the end to try to get their information. Because if they leave and I don't have their info, that's no good. So I even try to lure them as I'm having that conversation with them into the kitchen. I try to come up with a question that will allow me to need their information. Okay. So if I'm like
what would that be, Lexi?
Yeah. So I'd love to send you, the generic one is, I'd love to send you a few houses that I have on the top of my head that I think would fit your needs. Or, if you happen to know one coming up, I think I heard an agent in my office say they have one coming up in that neighborhood in a few weeks. I'd love to send you that information. Really anything you can think of to try to get that, because then you're bringing a sign-in sheet to them to make sure you get that information while you're talking to them. So
I think just to move forward, one of the good things there that I used to use was, are you interested in off-market properties? Because now you got something special for them, something that nobody else has. So, Janice, did you have something? Thank you, Lex. Janice.
And it may not be for this Zoom, but Lexi, are you going to share with us what your preparation for the open house looks like?
You're ahead of me. You're ahead of
All
me,
right.
Janice. Yes, we are.
Thank
Thanks, dear. I appreciate that. All right. And that's where we're going next is into, everybody says, let's do an open house. How do you choose them? Where are they? What's the best open house to do? What's the best time to do them? Get into that whole, what's your routine from Monday to Friday without going into the minutia? Just a 30,000 foot view of it,
Yeah, you asked me about 5 or 6 of your questions you sent me in one just then, Greg. So be careful for a long-winded answer.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay.
Take notes, folks. Take notes.
Yeah. So Mondays, I'm picking my open houses for the week/weekend. Okay. So I only do open houses Wednesdays through Sunday. So I hold off on Mondays and Tuesdays. People are starting their week. They're busy, like not the best days. So weekdays, I usually do 4 to 6. And keep in mind, this is all pre-coronavirus, right? Like times have changed. They may be changing back. We don't know what's happening, but I'm speaking as I would if it were normal times, okay? And then we'll get into now, right, Greg?
Yes, we will.
Okay. So 4 to 6 weekdays, usually Fridays, 12 to 3. Off a busy road, downtown beaches for Fridays during the day, just being strategic as far as where are people going to be out walking around or on their lunch break, things like that. Saturdays, it depends, right? Saturdays and Sundays, it really depends. 2 to 4 Sunday is was my go-to before everything happened. I was getting good traffic that way. It's a smaller window, but you're doing brand new listings on the weekends. That's hard criteria for me lately, is it has to be a brand new listing for the weekends. During the week, I only go about 2 weeks back for any open house now. So I'm not doing
Explain that.
Yeah, I mean, people are getting listing alerts on these properties and they're new and they're wanting to see them because they haven't seen them, right? If you're just going to get more traffic that way, it's pretty black and white.
So it's just 2 weeks back. You're not doing anything that's over 2 weeks old.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, 2 weeks is where I cut it. So let's see. Yeah, dates and times just kind of varies. If it's near a church, do 10 to 1 because I've gotten people that way too. So you just have to be strategic when it comes to the area. No more than 3 turns off a main road. I heard that 2 years ago at family reunion and I've stuck to it ever since for the most part. People give up on signs way back in a neighborhood, don't want to go back there unless they see it on Zillow and they're headed that way, specifically for that house. If you're trying to get people just from signs, it's not going to be as beneficial. And it helps you with putting out not as many signs. So that helps too. As far as signs go, it depends on the location. So it's not like I put out 20 no matter what. That's not true. To be honest, the majority of my business comes from Zillow. So they're knowing where the house is and they're wanting to come see it. But with signs, it just depends on where the open house is. Like at the beginning of the subdivision, I'm putting at least 2 to 3 on either side of the entrance because you want to attract a lot of attention to that. And then once they turn, hopefully there's no more than 3 turns back and that will drive the traffic. If there's heavy intersections around that neighborhood, definitely put signs, 1 on every corner on that intersection. But yeah, it just depends. Visibility in some areas is not great.
Let me ask you a question on signage real quick. I have been known not to put signage out when other people have signage out. I just wait until they get inside the neighborhood, put my own directionals up. So I'm not wasting my time because they're going to be pulled back there anyway with the signage. So is that something you do or do you shortcut that?
Say the question again about.
So let's say you get to a roundabout and there's 5 signs there. It doesn't matter whose company. I don't need to put my 6th, I don't need to put my sign on there. They're all going that way. Somebody's coming to me, right? I just want to know if that's,
Oh yeah, I'm all about the shortcuts. Don't do more work than you have to do.
Right.
They're already
Talk to me about Zillow. Talk to me about Zillow, Realtor, Trulia, what we in the industry call ZRT. Zillow,
Right.
Realtor, and Trulia. Talk to me.
I
How do you do it? How long before?
Yeah, so as much as we love or hate Zillow as agents, that's where people are looking for property, right? It is what it is. So the fact that whoever's open house you're doing, that's the first place it needs to go. So I have an email template that I send to agents that I want to do their open houses, and it gives them step-by-step instructions on what I need them to do for me and what I'm going to do for them as far as to host their open house. So the top thing is put that on MLS this day, this time, and ensure that it populates to Zillow. And it's my responsibility to go to Zillow and make sure that it populates, right? Because I've gotten to open houses and it was never on Zillow, and I'm upset, but it's really my fault because I didn't check on it. So you have to hold yourself accountable to checking on that. But yes, the majority of my traffic comes from there. So it's super important that you give that agent the instruction, if it's not you as the agent, to put that on Zillow, make sure it gets there, because that is where your traffic's going to come from. And it's, well, you said time frame, it's really just immediately. The second you decide to do the open house and you get approval from them, it needs to happen right away.
So it's not like you put them all up there on Monday and then market throughout the week to those open houses. No, if you're going to catch one.
Immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So once you know you're going to do it, you ask them to do it. Do you have any kind of checklists or anything that you use as you go through your day, or no?
So I created a time block at the beginning of this year around open houses specifically. And, I have it pulled up.
Okay.
So on Mondays, I'm doing my open house follow-up from the weekend from like 10 to 12. And then from 1 to 3, I'm planning my open houses for the week. So what that looks like, whatever that looks like, how heavy I want to have of a week or how light, whatever, like I'm planning all of that during that time on Monday. The reason for that is you want to have that stuff posted, on Zillow or MLS as soon as possible. So whether you're doing it on Saturday, Sunday, you still want that planned on Monday. And it takes some time for agents to get back to you on approving these open houses that you're asking them to do. So that can be a frustrating part. Just be, full transparency. It can be frustrating because you want to schedule these. You sometimes have to send emails to like 3 different agents about the same day and time. And then sometimes, you'll get 2 responses back saying yes, and then you have to move one of them. So it does happen. But for you, what's best for you is you get those planned. The sooner, the better.
So what I'm hearing is time block.
Yeah.
Manage your time. Be purposeful about it and manage your time. Good job. Facebook, Instagram. Tell me about them. Yes, no, maybe. Are they good? What are you getting from them?
Yeah. So my view on social media, Facebook specifically. So I think the platforms can be used differently for different people. My sphere is basically Atlanta, right? I do have some people here now that I've connected with, but the majority of my Facebook is Atlanta people. So how I use my social media is to keep the word out that I am in real estate full-time in South Carolina, and I want your referrals, or I can help answer questions for you about real estate. So I'm not specifically marketing my open houses every single time on Facebook, because that I'm not using that as a platform to drive traffic. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes,
I'm using it more as a platform to get a word out to my sphere that I'm in real estate full-time and I'm a trusted professional.
So what I was asking was, are you spending any money out of your pocket? Is this an inexpensive way to lead generate for a big business?
Yes, it is extremely inexpensive. I have never run a single ad about an open house. To say that I would like to, that's something I will possibly look into in the future, but you could be perfectly successful with open houses without spending a dime.
Why would you?
Yeah. To see if it would drive more traffic, but outside of that, yeah.
All right, cool. What would you do differently along your journey? What would you have changed, done different? Just what would you have done differently?
In what sense? In open houses?
In open houses, yes.
I would have implemented a time block sooner.
Time block earlier?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I implemented the time block in January, it really changed my business.
Yeah.
Because I viewed time blocking as something that restricted me. Like, we all want freedom in real estate, right? So I viewed time block as something that was very restrictive of my schedule, and I didn't want to put in every time I need to go to the bathroom, right? Like, that's not how I wanted to live my life. But when you time block around something that you love or you enjoy and you want to be successful at, it really changes your view. Like when I created this time block and everything in it was open houses, I'm like, I love open houses. This is great. I could do that. So it's just, I changed my mindset around it. And when I stuck to it, which is hard to do, I didn't always stick to it, but when I stuck to it before this coronavirus hit, it really was life-changing for my business, my open house business.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you can lead generate within your pleasure and still have a business. You don't have to sit there, dial a phone for 2 hours. Although you do that on Monday mornings, correct? You're following up on people.
Yes.
But they're people you know, people that hopefully are looking to buy a house. They're better leads. If there is such a thing as a good lead, they are a hot lead from the weekend before. Do you feel that the follow-up on Monday is what drives most of your business?
Yeah, well, yeah, all the money's in the follow-up. So not necessarily that Monday follow-up, but all the dollar signs are in the follow-up. So
Right.
I will be the first to tell you that I've lost money from not following up from open house leads, like 100%. But the fact is, once I learned that I can't go out there and do all the legwork and then not come home and do the legwork, I'm not going to reap the benefit ever. And I'm just wasting my time. So
Exactly.
that was huge for me to realize. So I'm following up every single day. In my time block, there's follow-up every single day. But Monday specifically, I'm only following up with the leads that came during the open houses the weekend prior. So really Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And that's where I was going to. Years ago, I heard a gentleman, I can't remember his name now, but his entire business was open houses. And his main focus was finding that one person that Saturday or Sunday that was going to buy a house that week. And he sold 52 houses a year. Think about that. If you find the one person 1 week, every week, right, the 5 days that you're out there doing open houses, you're going to have 50 pieces of business, if not more, because you got listings coming with them by the end of the year. And this is why I love Lexi and what she does for a business, because it is such a simple thing to do as far as I want to meet people. Well, what's the best way to meet people? Is in open houses, because that's what we do. We're in real estate. And if you're trying to meet people at the gym that might need a house, no, they're there to work out. You know, here you have people looking at a house and hell, they might want to buy a house this week, right? Is that what you find, Lex?
Yeah, I mean, one of your questions to me on the email, Greg, was how many are interested in buying a home that come through. And when I was thinking about it, I'm like, okay, probably 85 to 90% of the people that come through are looking to buy or sell a house. So it's just a matter of you asking the right questions and then weeding through the people, because you're very rarely, unless you're doing an open house like downtown on a Friday, you're going to get looky-loos. But outside of that, like
Right.
the majority of people that are spending their time on a Saturday, Sunday, or evening weekday coming to see you, it's because they're actually interested.
So Betsy wants to know, how do you specifically use Zillow? And what do you do on Tuesdays?
So Zillow that's really the only way I use it, Betsy, is making sure those agents populate the information. Aside from that, with normal open houses, that's all I do. Virtual is a different story, and I think we'll talk about that in a minute. But
That's what, yeah, we're going to get through it.
okay.
So Tuesday is
Tuesdays. Let's see. I'm doing follow up, and then I'm open house prepping for the week. So I also have role play, some other things on there for Tuesday. That was on my other schedule, but prepping for the week. So like my Wednesday open house, I need to make sure all my documents are printed. I get one copy of all the MLS docs, one copy of the tax records, and then my open house sign-in sheets, my business cards, a pin. Like I just make sure all that is ready to go for my Wednesday open house. The reason for one copy is because you're wasting paper if you do more than one. And some people like to walk around with the property disclosure in their hand or walk around with the tax records, things like that, to look at it physically if they don't believe you. So that's the reason why I always have one copy with me.
cool. You work 7 days a week?
I was. A lot of the times I was. Christine yells at me for this, but yes, a lot of the times I was. But it's all about balance. And And
How are you taking time off now?
well, now it looks a lot different. I'm like loving my weekends because I've been doing virtuals like during the week, and it's been great. I've never loved weekends before because when open houses is your business, you just don't. So
That's what you're doing, sure. So let's talk about virtuals. Let's talk about virtuals. Have you done any?
yes.
You have. And quickly go through and tell me what does that look like? How do you set it up?
Yeah, so I've only done a few, and I've gotten one lead from it. So I'm not professional in this era, but one lead is better than no leads. And I created a Google form, and this form is put in the first line of the listing description on Zillow. So here's how I utilize Zillow, Betsy, in virtual world. So I ensure that the listing agent puts the link to the Google form in the first line, and she has language that states, fill out this form for a link to our open house, our virtual open house, okay? The open house is still posted on MLS and Zillow, so the days and times are still on there, but they have to fill out this Google form before they get access to the Zoom link with me. So what that does is it populates their information just as if they were signing into an open house. So during the time of the open house, I'm at the house sitting there. I have Zoom up on my iPad, and then I'm working on my laptop. And then I'm admitting people as they come in the Zoom. So they're in a waiting room type situation, and I'm admitting them one at a time and basically giving them a virtual showing of the house.
How beautiful is that? How beautiful is you've already got their address and their name probably, right? Their email address and their name, maybe a good phone number. You've already captured the information. I think that's real important. So once they're in the home, you pretty much do a regular showing through, and you walk them through, ask the questions.
Yeah, so that's what I was afraid I would be missing with like a recording situation. And Greg will share some more on an idea he has that I am going to look into. But with me, my first thought was I have to make the personal connection, right? And the only way for me to do that was in a one-on-one situation, just as if they had walked into my open house. So that was my reasoning behind like being able to admit them one by one and then asking those questions.
So you were physically in the house, just so people understand.
Yes.
You were in the house, you had to go to the house, you had to walk through the house, and as they came on, and I think where we're going with this is I read a piece from a high-performing agent out west somewhere. The way they're doing the virtuals is they're going through, they're taking a very good video of the home, and then they're going back to their office, and they're producing that video. They then put the virtual tour, the virtual open house out to the world on Zillow, ZRT, and their MLS. And then as people sign in, and think about this, you can do this all day long, right? As people sign in, the first person they see is you, Lexi, and you go, "Hi, I'm Lexi. Do you live in a neighborhood, or are you looking to buy a home today?" Right? I mean, conversation stays the same. Well, great, let me show you the house. And then you turn the video on, and together you watch the video. And as they go through, they're asking you questions. And I think they're still, or at the same time, you can say, "Here's the video. I'll catch up with you halfway through." There's got to be something going on there. I'm going to research it a little bit deeper. I just think it works better on your time if you can sit in an office and do the same darn thing that you're doing at site, and doing other paperwork while somebody clicks in and goes, "I want to see that open house." Here it is. Boom. So that's something to look at if you have a mind to look it up yourselves. You said you had, so how many open houses have you had, virtuals?
I've done 3.
And you've gotten one buyer,
Yes.
seller out of it?
One buyer.
One buyer. Great. And that buyer will close eventually?
Hopefully.
There you go. Three makes one buyer. Absolutely fabulous. What else you got? What haven't I asked you, Lexi? What do you want to tell everybody?
One other big thing. Sorry, I was looking at my notes. One other big thing is don't ever let a lead leave without setting an expectation with them on when you're going to follow up with them.
Great.
That was a huge aha moment for me, because I'm the type of person who still thinks I'm going to bother them when I call them to follow up. So if I tell them, like, look, I'm going to give you a call on Monday to give you this, this, and this, like the information they asked for, or, you know, I'm going to set you up on my website on Monday and I'm going to give you a call on Wednesday just to make sure you're getting everything from me. So that helps me and the client, right? Because it's helping me hold myself accountable to actually doing those things, because I look like a dummy if I don't. And then for them, like it's showing professionalism and setting an expectation for them to know when to receive things, because I know myself and I know if I meet them on Saturday, unless they're like a super duper hot buyer, then I'm probably going to send that email on Monday and not on Sunday. So it's important for me to tell them that. And then there's no issue because they know to expect that. So that was a big learning moment for me. And that's really helped me with my business. And also, like, it's as simple as thing, but like, make sure it's a cute house. Like, I really don't care what price point it is. If it's not a cute house, like, people probably aren't coming to see you, right? And you have no social media opportunity. Like, just, I kind of goes without saying, but it is
That's the
super
best one.
important.
Make sure it's a cute house. I like that. I like that. We're going to open it up for questions. One last question from me. What are you most curious about right now?
I'm curious about what this world is going to look like in 3 months or 6 months. This was my whole business, y'all. Like, and so when this happened, I already deal with anxiety. So my whole world was like crashing and burning for a second, you know? And so figuring out how to adapt it took me a minute, you know? And then now that I've adapted and it's not showing me as much success, like, I'm still constantly trying to educate myself on a better way to do it. And when this is your business, I think it's super important to do that. But with that being said, I've also had to shift my business a little bit. I got into a networking group in January called BNI, and I've been very blessed with referrals that have been sent my way from that group. And so with all of this being said, and I know this is an open house class, but I do think this is important to say, that you have to shift with the shift, okay? And this isn't giving me as much result right now, so a lot of my energy has shifted a little bit into BNI and like having one-on-ones with those people and building my relationship with them, because they're the ones sending me business right now. So while I'm educating myself on the best way to do open houses, I'm also doing that. So I just feel like that's important to say, like, it's important right now to shift with the times, but what I'm most worried about is what this is going to look like, because I want nothing more than to be able to go back to doing this full steam ahead, you know?
I think you're going to be able to. I'm pretty positive. I think one of the things you said there, though, with BNI, it's the N stands for network. And for those of us who, my business is based around my network, it's based around my database and the sphere of influence. That's what I depend on to make a living. And I think Lexi's saying, you know, you have your lead generation business, but you also have to have your network. And that's real important, especially she came from Atlanta. There should be more than enough opportunity there for referrals, I would hope. Betsy would like to know if you're going to share your email template.
I'm happy to, Betsy.
Okay. We can go, here's what I want to say. We're going to open it up for questions, and we're going to type them over here. So, and I'll ask her the question. That's the easiest way to do it, so we don't get rambling on, because I can ramble. I have a Facebook group. It's called Power Interviews. This recording and the other ones will be part of that. It's a private group. You got to ask to join. It's called Power Interviews. I just started it right before we opened this up, so there's nothing on it. But we'll get that up and running. That's where we'll store the links for this series and other series. So be sure to check on that. And if I'll put the files there as we get more and more files each week. If Lexi wants to share that email template, be happy to put that there. All right. So who's got a question?
Greg, I can show my virtual sign-in. Would anybody like to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to screen share and show. Oops. Can y'all see that?
Yep.
So this is the form I created. It's very simple to make, guys, like super simple. It took me 5 minutes to make it. And this is the link that is put on the first page or the first line in Zillow. And you're just getting the basic info. So email, name, phone number. which open house do you plan to attend? This is more so for you on the back end. So if you're going to use this Google form for multiple open houses, they can select which one. That way, when their information populates into a spreadsheet for you, you know what open house they attended. So it is important to have on there for that reason. And then, are you currently working with an agent? Yes or no? Are you interested in buying, selling, both, or neither? So this has been like the best form.
I love it.
Because I already have all my answers when they get in there.
Yep.
Super easy.
And you've got your final answer of what's your price point, right? So I'm going to stick with my LP Mama, but that's great. That's a great intake form right there. That is a great intake form. I got another question here. Oh, Bold Pilot is starting at 2 o'clock. That wasn't a question. That was just somebody saying goodbye.
Allison,
all right, what else we got? Who else got a question?
Allison asked one earlier that I don't know if I answered. What do you do with the neighbors?
Oh, the neighbors. Nosy neighbors?
How do you keep that convo going to make them your client in the future? So yeah, it's a very personal conversation with them. So it's, how long have you lived here? Do you like the neighborhood? I always say I love when neighbors come through because I love to hear what they like and don't like. So I'm able to tell the buyers that, that then come to see the house. So it's very much so a conversation. And then I always say, I find that most neighbors that come through have had thoughts of selling your home. Are you thinking about selling your home? So then you're opening that conversation up. So, right. So you've gotten to know them. You're asking the touchy-feely questions about, do they like it? How long have they lived here? And then you're moving into the good stuff. Like, have you thought about selling your house? If you did sell, where would you go? What would that look like for you and your family to move there? So then it's, more of the sales questions.
Cool. And that's important. A quick question, and I'll get to you, Wayne. Do you do any door knocking up and down, 10 up, 10 down, and across? Do you actually knock on a door and say, hey, we're having an open house?
Yeah, not as much as I should. Full disclosure. Yeah.
When you did, or when you do you find that's a good conversation starter, lead generator?
Yes. So I don't love sellers. For those that know me, I don't love listings or working with sellers. So,
sides of the spectrum.
Right. So in the grand scheme of things, yes, it's a great way to generate business because you're personally inviting people. So then when they show up to your open house, it's a second touch for them. Like you've already, met them a second time. So yes, it's an amazing way to do it.
All right. Conversation from Wayne. What percentage of buyers coming to your open house have representation?
So that's kind of all over the place, to be honest. I don't find that in a specific area there's more representation. I haven't had the data to back that up yet. But I mean, if 5 people come through, I'd say at least 3 of them are represented.
Cool.
So yeah, half or, maybe 70%, but all you need is the 30. So
all you need is one.
All you need is one.
Also, are you holding any open houses for other brokerages other than KW? And I have something to say about that too.
Yes. So what I have to say is it never hurts to ask. Okay. So I ask any brokerage, anybody. The only people I shy away from are teams because they have agents who host a lot of their open houses. But outside of that, I ask anyone. And I have had people come back and say, I don't think I can do that. And I'm like, well, you can, so you just kind of have to educate them at that point. But I've only had like 2 people kind of be snappy with me about it before. And you're just asking a question. So.
Okay. And to go back real quick and talk about price point. If you're going to do an open house in a price point of $100,000 homes, you're going to get $100,000 buyers. So if you really want to, when I started the business, Craigslist was brand new. Yeah. And they were just parting the waters. Okay. For the people to walk across the sea. Craigslist was brand new. And I didn't have any listings. I picked every $300,000 and above house. And that's how I made my living, because you start talking to people with $300,000 buy, they're asking to buy those houses. So I think Lexi will agree. Price point is important. Correct, Lex?
It is important, but I will say that when you're just trying to build your pipeline and grow your business, you go where the market's hot, right? So
Where's that right now?
well, before all this, it was up in Somerville. 200,000, 250. That's where they were moving, like super quick, y'all. I had like 9 offers one day on one of my listings up there. So it happens super fast up there. So with that being said, yes, like when you grow a pipeline and then you're really trying to hone in on your business and focus on where you want to be. And like I told Christine, she hates open houses. Thank you for being here. But I told her that, she's a native to West Ashley. And I'm like, if you're going to do open houses, only do them in West Ashley because you know everything about West Ashley. Right. So it's just like where you live, guys, like do them there because you're an expert on that area already and people will feel like the authenticity that you're telling them. So I have a lot I could say about area.
Okay, we'll discuss that maybe at a later time because it is important.
Yeah.
Are you putting your sign on the lawn while you're at the open house? And do you bring food and drink?
No, I got fat doing that. Don't do that.
And people show up just for it. And
yes.
That's where you want to watch yourself.
Right. I used to get cupcakes and I would eat them all. So no, I don't do that in the summer. I bring water bottles though, because it is hot and people appreciate that. Sure. So I'll have water bottles there. And no, I don't put my own sign in the yard, just directionals. People that are coming in are talking to me. So
Lexi, thank you very much. We're at the end of our time. Boulder's coming up next. I really do appreciate it. Go to, I'd like to talk to all of you. If you have any questions, let me know. I am building that business of consulting and coaching on the side. Every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, we stopped Fridays with Flanagan because people didn't want to show up on Fridays. We had good crowds, but so we're back to Tuesday at 11 o'clock, free training. We're just going to ask questions, do whatever you want to do, so you're there. Power Interviews is Facebook. We'll have all her information. We'll have this recording, and I hope you all have a great day. Any parting comments there, Miss Lexi? How'd you enjoy it?
I loved it. Thank you for having me. I hope y'all got something good to take away.
This was excellent, Lexi.
I've enjoyed you having
Thanks, Lexi and Greg. Thank you.
Appreciate y'all. Have a great day.
Bye.
Lexi, thank you. That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Hey, thank you.